This is the IWD 2026 Career Women Interview Series, featuring a collection of honest, unfiltered conversation with women who have moved through the hardest seasons of their lives. And they have been through career breaks, reinvention, leadership, and they've come not just surviving, but thriving and contributing. So today's guest is a story, a masterclass in turning personal pain into public purpose. Like, I can't wait for you to meet today's guest. She's a dually qualified barrister and solicitor, the founder and principal counsel of Ayoka Law Office, an Alberta-based practice focused on family law and immigration. She was called to the Alberta Bar in 2004. She brings over a decade of international legal experience that spans across multiple jurisdictions, industries, and continents. But what makes her story even particularly compelling to today's conversation is this. When she went through her own divorce, she filed and managed the entire process herself. And this act of self-advocacy lit the fire in her that became the very foundation of her family law practice today. She's a champion for access to justice, a pro bono advocate for pro bono law Alberta, and she's had a community fundraising events in the Niger-Delta, empowering over 100 women in the Niger-Delta through skills and literacy training. Ladies and everyone listening, please welcome with me to the IWD Career Women series, Tammy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Celine, for inviting me, and thank you for that introduction. That introduction was like, I was like, am I the one we're talking about here? Well, thank you very much, Celine. I am very pleased to be here with you today to share.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you so much for coming. I've read your very impressive bio, but beyond the bio, let's meet Tammy. Introduce yourself in your own words.
Okay. Tammy is, I'm just who I am. I'm just a human being trying to navigate life, trying to make the best of where I find myself, and trying to encourage other people who have been in my position or who will be in my position in the future, because this is the reality that we find ourselves in, how to navigate through tough seasons and come out refined. So that's who Tammy is, because this has become part of my life's purpose. And in a summary, that's who I am now.
Thank you. That's an interesting intro to the conversations we've been having. I'm glad that you actually mentioned that you are in a position where you want to be able to help other women through transition seasons. So that's a fine foundation to our conversations. But before we get to the transition seasons, let's go to the very start. I mean, you built a very versatile legal career, and you've practiced in multiple countries, several practice areas for over a decade. Like, talk to us, take us back to the beginning. What drew you to law? What did your international journey in legal practice or being a lawyer, how has it been? Take us to the very beginning and how you've transitioned your legal practice and your legal career through the years.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I have a firm belief that life is structured in 10-year blocks. So let's say, for example, 0 to 10. And Celine can testify because we went to the same. So let's say 0 to 10, those are your formative years, nursery, primary, and then the turn of the decade, most likely for most people in that season, is the elevation into secondary school, right? And then in secondary school, there's an expectation that, you're going to be doing this 6 years in order to have a picture of what you want to be in the future, right? So I've always had that picture of someone who wants to be a lawyer. And I'll tell you why, because my family does have a legal background. My uncle is a lawyer. My late aunt is a lawyer as well. So, when you say, oh, I want to be a lawyer, you have people to back it up in your family to say, oh, yes, oh, my uncle is a lawyer, my auntie is a lawyer. So it is something that always been in my mind that I was going to do. But of course, you have to scale through the secondary school levels. Did you pass the right courses? Did you, do the right things in order to project yourself for being a lawyer? And fortunately for me, that was my case. I was well prepared. I did the right things, and I, you know, eventually became a lawyer. I was called to the Nigerian bar in 2008, I believe. So, it was just one of those things. You flow with, the way that life has, I'm one of the lucky ones because not every one of us who said we're going to be lawyers actually
Yeah.
turned out to be lawyers, right? But like, it was just one of those things where, you had a vision, you have people who embody this thing that you want to be. So it kind of keeps you
Mm.
on track. It kind of keeps you, within the boundaries of that place. And
Mm-hmm.
there's an eventuality. So
Mm-hmm.
at probably 21, I was, in law school. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's where the real dawn, which is like, you remember I said in 10-year blocks. So
Mm-hmm.
we're entering the third 10-year block, or the second one, right? Yes, because that's 20. So the second year block to determine how do you now build on where you really want to go. Now
Mm-hmm.
you've done the like a principal thing, you've become the lawyer. But
Mm-hmm.
what areas you want to specialize? What do you want to do? How do you navigate this part of your life?
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, to be honest with you, I really did not know what I wanted to do. I was just, oh, finally a lawyer, Of course, my family does have a law practice. My uncle has a law practice. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, fair enough. I could join this practice, and let's see how or where life takes me. Fortunately for me, I went to Lagos Law School. So from there, I just stayed in Lagos. And I told my uncle, I said, Uncle, you know what? I'm going to open, like my uncle was in Port Harcourt at the time. So I said, Uncle, I'm going to be your Lagos branch. Okay. So let's assume that you have a lawyer in Lagos who can do your running arounds and whatnot. So at this time, I was fortunate to have done NYSC. It was very interesting. And I eventually got to do masters. So I got admission to do masters in Leiden University in The Hague. um, I was enrolled to do public international law, and which is one of the, like, it was my dream, right? Because, human rights, fight for people. We want to, we're going to the ICJ. We're going to make sure that those rules that they're making, the world police, it's kind of like it's regarded as the world court. So
Mm-hmm.
it was exciting times for me. At that time, I was probably maybe 22. So I was very excited. I'm going to be part of this, beautiful international structure, and I'm going to, make a difference in the world. I'll probably travel the world, be a lawyer, be advocating for, at that time there was like the Yugoslavia war, there was Rwanda. So there was a lot of things happening in the international community. So there was a lot of ginger. I was like, yes, I'm going to make a difference in the in the world, right? So I, went to Leiden, and I did in public international law. But you know what that did for me? It actually disillusioned me because, when I got there and, we're studying critical theories, and they said, you know what? Everyone justifies um, self-interest. What is in this for me?
Mm-hmm.
For me to come and fight for you, what do
Mm-hmm.
I have to gain?
Mm-hmm.
So it gave me critical, like I started critically thinking about my life. Like, so you mean like, there's no global police coming to save anyone without self-interest. So why am I going to advance someone else's self-interest when I can come back to my country and, make a difference where I can? So another thought started building in my head. How can I make impact? Where can I be
Mm-hmm.
to make impact in my, my own little corner? Because that's what I got at the end of the day. You cannot be the world police, but you can make a difference in your little corner, wherever you are. So at that point, and I'll not lie to you, there was one boy that was striking me at that time. So it was part of the motivation to come back to Nigeria, right? So I eventually came back, and
Mm-hmm.
I got a job in the Lagos State Ministry of Justice.
Mm-hmm.
Was not the typical ministry job because, remember, I'm coming from a policy a perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
coming to make a difference. We're not coming to come and be like, level one, come and, start
Push files.
pushing files. No, that was not it. So luckily for me, another brilliant lawyer. I cannot say my story without mentioning this man, Mr. Adeniran.
Mm.
Brilliant man. He too was coming from The Hague after practicing for about 10 years as a prosecutor. So he
Mm.
was trying to build a strong team of,
Mm.
just go backs, we want to make a difference kind of team. And, when I put my resume in, he said, oh, the Hague, you're coming from where I'm coming from. Let's do this. So I became his assistant. So I was given a senior project coordinator role. And now, what was our mission at that time? It was to make a difference, to overhaul the justice system. And
Mm.
that's where it was in that um, we bettered strong institutions. We have
Mm.
the Lagos Public Interest Partnership Law headed by Fumi Owiye. That
Mm.
was solid. We have the Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency or team headed by
Mm.
Lola Vivor Adeniyi. Those were
Mm.
team members. We birthed what we call the Witness Protection Agency, and that was
Mm.
headed at the time by Yinka Ademuyiwa, but she is now in Canada with me as well. Still a strong policy advocate. So it was like this team of strong women. Then there's Bola Akinshete. She's currently I think in the one of the Rwanda tribunals at this
Mm.
time. So they were looking for people who had a different kind of mindset.
Mm.
They were ready to make a change. So that was where I started. In fact, I was now put in charge of consumer policy, how to overhaul um, consumer protection in Lagos State.
Mm.
But that's story for another day. So, that's basically how I started my legal career back in Nigeria. And,
Mm.
I worked with Lagos State Ministry of Justice until I got a different appointment in the Nigerian Canadian Business Association, which now triggered my journey to Canada. So basically, that's how my legal journey has been. But one thing I've always noticed is I've never wanted to be, I've always been an outlier. I
Mm.
never wanted to fit into one mold. If I'm somewhere, it's making impact. If it's not making impact, I've lost interest. So that has always been, so that was the next block of my life, which was, the 20s, getting into the 30s. That's what I did
Mm.
myself until I eventually relocated to Canada when I was, 34, 30, 33 or 34. So,
Okay, I mean, this is a very interesting foundation, like the depth of experience you've had. And it's interesting because from all that you've said, what comes across to me is the fact that you've been in the space where there is a desire to be a person of impact. There's been a desire to be someone who is building systems. There's been a desire to be someone who is at the front run of something very meaningful, like something that's never been done before. You are the one who is driving those processes and implementing new systems from scratch with no referrals whatsoever. So it's really impactful. And I mean, for to have that kind of exposure, it's clear to me why you would even think about starting a firm after going through a very challenging time. So let's take the conversation even closer. I mean, having had this very enriching career with all the various aspects of law you've delved into, why did you get into family law? Why
good.
focus on family law, particularly after managing your own divorce? So take us back to that moment. Why was it important for you to manage the process, and what really drove the need for you to see that seemingly challenging circumstance as a launch pad for starting your own law firm, which is Ayoka Law Practice? Talk to us about that season, the process, and how it gave birth to Ayoka Law Practice.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a very, sometimes you're just trying to survive through life. You don't actually really um like look at your circumstances. But now that you're talking about it,
Hmm.
indeed, my pain was like a launch pad to where I am today. Okay,
Hmm.
so I'll start from probably about the time that we moved to Canada. And this
Hmm.
was like the middle part of 2019, I believe. Yes, sometime in 2019. So Canada was an opportunity that we had as a family for a
Hmm.
fresh start. Now, I won't say that, we've not been going through our own differences and our own trials in Nigeria as a couple. That is normal. So, but we looked at Canada as something that we're going to, have a fresh start as a family of four at the time. So, the thing is that we were not really prepared for the realities. Okay,
Mm.
because for example, I had lived in a house where, I had I had a nanny for my kids. I
Mm.
had my sister
Mm.
living with me. My husband's niece was living with me. And then I had my cousins, two cousins who always used to come from school. They lived in Port Harcourt and they used to school in, Ogun State. So they were always in my house whenever it was the holidays. Actually, there were three. So my house was literally always full of
Overcrowded.
people. My house was always full of people. You know what I mean? Like, there were some days like I literally not touch my children. Like, oh, hello, mwah, mwah, mwah. But I'm gone because, but I know that like there's so many people to take care of them, to do stuff, right? If I even wanted to cook, I'll just say, oh, everybody prepare everything. Like everything is literally all lined up, in my kitchen before I get in there. So when you live a life like that, I had time on my hands. I had a business. I had a sewing business. I had a fashion business, or that was running on the side. And then I had my Nigerian Canadian Business Association job, and I lived in Lekki. My job was like maybe 15 minutes from my house. So I
Mm.
was kind of like living La Vida Loca in that sense of word, right? So, all of a sudden, and same with my husband as well, because he had, he was my ex-husband at the time. He had his business was pretty close to where we lived, and you know, it was just we were all just living like, okay, like living, I would say a mid-income good life, right? At the time. When the opportunity came, we were excited, but we did not really take into perspective what
Mm.
the cost of moving would be for us,
Mm.
what our expectations would be, what, like there was no preparation of such. All we thought about was, we're moving, and that was it. And so when we landed in Canada, here is a new place, a new city, in fact, we started arguing about the city like, from like maybe possibly, as soon as we landed. Okay, where did we decide we were going to go? Oh, I said Calgary because, of course, that's where I was used to my oil and gas energy. We used to have like this particular meeting, GPS, that I used to head. So all my, Calgary was like a no-brainer for me. I was like, oh, you're in
Yeah.
petroleum industry. We should go to Calgary. And then he said, no, I'm going to Ontario. I'm like, Ontario, I've heard so many things about Ontario that, once men enter there, they just start doing all sorts of things. So I was like, brother, no, we're going to Calgary. So we already started arguing about where we were going. And this is funny because, you know, so there was already discord right from the beginning about where we were going to settle. And that's something that is really, really serious. It's cardinal. It makes a
Yeah.
difference between how your life turns out.
Mm.
And I have to mention that he wasn't happy to be moving at this time because at that time he was 40. I just turned 40. So he was like, I'm at the peak of my life, and then you're just upping us, moving us out. And I
Mm.
was like, I see the trends, I see the signs and the season. This is prime time to move.
Mm.
So we had landed and we already had those, Discord. And, I had to now start treading carefully, like, oh, okay, now that I'm the one who has usurped somebody from their life, I need
Mm.
to be accommodating of
Mm.
how he's going to settle. Because for me, I'd already made some inquiries. I said, okay, I only have to write licensing exams. And then, I already had a little bit of a roadmap in terms of how I want
Mhm.
to navigate, right? I didn't
Mm.
have any timelines, but, I was optimistic. But
Mhm.
here's someone who's been uprooted as well, but he didn't have the leisure of having these things sorted out because I was
Mm.
taking care of this process.
Mm.
So here we are. And we landed smack right in the middle of COVID.
Wow.
So maybe we just arrived, COVID started. And what
Mm.
did that mean? It meant that there were no jobs. There
Mm.
was, there was no prospects. Like prospects were really, really low. And then we came
Mm.
at everybody's like, oh, Alberta is just experiencing a downturn. This is not the
Mm.
right, you shouldn't have come at this time. So there was so
Wow.
much negativity around
Oh
us.
my God. Mm.
And wow, I was like, wow, I hope I did not make the wrong decision for my family. So I already started carrying the weight of this transition that we had made. I started carrying the weight. I had to start adjusting. Remember, me, I didn't used to touch anything in the house. Now, all of a sudden, I've become housewife, cook, chef, drive to school. Like, and then, unfortunately for me, my children were at the age where they couldn't even start school because
Oh.
it's at 5 here. So their kindergarten, they used to go for maybe like 2 or 3 hours. And
Mm.
then you can't pick the children. So literally, you couldn't really, really navigate a good, like a proper, like life.
Mm.
And then, of course, there was the pressure of finances because it's not, like it's not your usual pay your rent for the 1 year, you pay monthly, and that equates to what you pay even in a year in Lekki.
Yeah.
So, somebody definitely had to work. And then, okay, I said, okay, what kind of job can I get? Transitioning was not easy because
Mm.
where you're a lawyer over there in your country. Whenever you apply, they say, oh, you're overqualified. Oh, you're overqualified. We don't have jobs for you. Oh, nothing. Oh, this. It was so demoralizing. It was so demoralizing. And then, of course, like I said, it was COVID. So things were not really opening up.
Mm.
So I couldn't get a job. And what that meant was that um, I now had to make a decision to stay at home and take care of my children.
Mm.
Because if I didn't have a job and they were going to daycare or a day home or whatever, it was going to be costing of at least $2,000 to $3,000
Mm.
a month because there were two children and their ages were very close.
Mm.
So, I want to believe that I and my spouse at that time made a decision to minimize that cost and have me staying at home.
Mm.
And you know what that means for a woman who has almost always worked all her life. It becomes a struggle. It becomes a struggle. So finances were tight. I was home with the children, frustrated because these are children that I never really used to like. Okay, don't laugh too much, but that's the truth. Like I'm being like
Yeah,
as
I
honest as
understand.
possible here. So I used, but I never used to have to bother about bathing them in the morning, worrying about what they were going to eat. I only had to say the word, and then it was done. But here I am. I have to do every single thing myself. And then remember, we just moved. So my children's stability, their emotional,
Mm.
is now all on me. Even the
Mm.
spouse, because I'm trying to manage his expectation. We have moved at seemingly a wrong time,
Mm.
and the pressure is on. Somebody
Mm.
has to go out there and make money. The
Mm.
bills have to be paid. Somebody has to stay at home. So it was really, really, really I would use like an unconventional word. It was a shit show, like for us at that time.
Mm.
So there
Mm.
was a lot of conflict. A lot
Mm.
of conflict. There was conflict, conflict, conflict. In fact, I from that time on, I can't even remember like any good times anymore. It was always like, one thing or the other. And
Mm.
then it now became a case of, like you need to suck it up because, you made this choice. You
Mm.
So that's where, it's really started going down. It really started going down. It really started going down. So COVID, we kind of survived, and thanks to Canada, of course, they give like child benefits. They do a lot of things to alleviate. And during COVID time, they had many measures to make sure that they minimize the suffering of families at that time. So we were able to somehow weather through that season. Yet, I will tell you that it was not enough. Celine, I had to make some life changing choices at that point, I had to take a job as a security guard. I had to take, and then, and if like you just read my resume, you read,
Yeah.
and then you see where I'm coming from and where I eventually came. So it was
Mm.
like, this is not the dream.
Mm.
It's not the dream. And what
Mm.
that meant was that I could only take jobs at nights because obviously my spouse would be out during the day, my kids would be, and I cannot leave them. When he comes back, whenever he
Yeah.
comes, is when I can go to,
Mm.
to do whatever I needed to do. But
Mm.
that was the launch pad for me where I started studying to requalify, to be licensed.
Okay.
And I go to my security job. I used to work with WestJet. It's like it was like an aircraft base.
Mm-hmm.
All I had to do was monitor the systems
Mm-hmm.
and patrol, like check, make sure that everything is okay. But when I
Mm-hmm.
was done with my chores for the night, I could actually sit down and pick my book up and
Mm.
begin to read. Okay.
Study.
So those were the things that I did to, help myself. And at the end of the day, I was not earning a lot, but I was earning a little more. I could actually pay for some of my courses and
Mm.
I could contribute to the home a little to relieve, the ex at that time.
Mm.
However, something had changed irrevocably,
Yeah.
much to my like I'm not there's no blame game here at this point. There's no saying, oh, who did what or what now. But something had changed irrevocably, whether I liked it or not. And, you know, we had actually come to an impasse where, you know, one partner had decided, I really need to get out of this.
Mm.
It's no longer for me. This no longer serves me.
Mm.
At this point, here I was with two kids managing their emotions because
Mm.
remember, um, they've had a lot of upheavals. They've had
Yeah.
to move countries, move family. Now,
Mm.
all the cousins, their house was always full. All of a sudden, it's so quiet. It's just me
Mm.
and them.
Mm.
And I as well, for someone who never ever thought that I'll ever come to a point where I would have to have a divorce.
Mm.
Because I mean, even I was raised in a very, very, very strong Christian background. My grandfather was actually clergy, was actually a reverend in the Anglican church.
Mm.
And it was something that I seriously struggled with. I struggled with it so much because like it was never part of my plans. It
Mm.
was never anything anywhere I envisaged myself being. But the thing is, here I was. I had an option to either, you know, be depressed
Mm.
or pick myself up. Pick myself up. So I did the next best thing. I picked myself up and I will not tell you I was not depressed. I probably slept like literally slept for straight maybe like 12 days or something.
Wow.
And I just woke up one day and I said, you know what, this cannot continue. Because at the
Mm.
time, um, you know, so many things were happening. So I
Mm.
said to myself, so there's a place for speaking to yourself, for
Mm-hmm.
you to go back to your plans. This was not what I wanted. This was not what I envisaged myself or my family ever being. So now I need to do the next best thing, which is get up and regroup.
Mm.
And I can tell you that that's like literally the hardest part because it's from that point that some people just go down in the deep and
Yeah.
they never recover. So, like, where do you find that resilience in your spirit, the tenacity to come back and say, okay, things didn't go as I planned, but here I am here now. You know, how do I navigate this season of my life? How do I do it? So um remember I didn't have the job, I had the security job. Unfortunately for
Mm.
me, I fell and I like sprained my ankle or something, and it was kind of like a light bulb moment. I was like,
Mm.
this is not what I came here for.
Mm.
I need to transition as soon as possible. So I started looking for a job in my area. I
Mm.
started looking for a job in my area. So I searched my city. I couldn't find any job.
Mm.
I now found a job in a city that was 3 hours away from me. 3 hours away from me. And
Mm.
I said to myself, you know what? If I ever want to be financially independent, if I ever want to have any chance at this life that this life that I planned for myself, even though it hasn't gone as planned, I need
Mm.
to pick myself up and do the next best thing, which is get financially stable. So guess what? I said, X, you're gonna have to step up and take care of these kids because I'm going to be out of the city. So I started
Mm.
doing that job out of the city. I did that job so technically we're separated because we were not like in good terms, but we were not divorced at the time. It was just a separation.
Mm.
So I had him take care of the kids, and then I used to come back every Friday.
Okay.
So I would drive 3 hours to the other city. And
Mm.
what was I doing? I was learning immigration. Where I was working
Okay.
solely immigration firm. Okay. So I learned the different types of immigration, express entry, business, spousal, judicial reviews, refugee. That's where I learned the bulk of my immigration experience.
Mm.
Again, immigration experience. So I did that for about 6 to 7 months until I realized that, my ex was ready to move on. Like,
Mm.
me being away from my city would have affected custody of my children.
Okay.
I had to make a difficult decision to leave that job and come back to my city.
Mm.
So I came back to my city because of my children.
Mm.
And I said, you know what? It's time for us to actually make this formal.
Mm.
How do we navigate it? Now, how do we navigate it that is going to be somehow, there's going to be casualties. There's no way.
Yeah.
But considering the best interest of the children at that
Mm.
time,
Mm.
how to find balance and navigate their emotional states,
Mm.
how to also navigate, because remember, I am still dealing with these things because this was supposed to be a forever marriage, right? And then realizing that, you've come to the end of the road. It's a
Mm.
difficult time. And at the same time, how to make sure that we do not spend money fighting in court
Mm.
and wasting monies that we could have been putting somewhere else.
Mm.
So I'd already come to a mindset of, I'm not going to, like, this is not going to be a cat fight. This is
Mm.
going to be a messy one that we're going to be such that, everyone is going to hear our story. Let
Mm.
us try to navigate this with as much grace as possible. That was
Mhm.
what I thought in my mind, and that's how I sought to navigate it. So I approached him and I said, you know what? Let's have a joint divorce.
Mhm.
And this is a new area for me. This is even an area I'd even sworn that I would never do.
Mm.
I told myself that I will never do divorce. But here I am. Like, how life sometimes can throw you some very hard balls.
Yeah.
What I said I was never going to do, I was
Yeah.
right in the middle of it. And I said to myself, okay, how can I do this as graciously and as gracefully as possible? So I said to him, you know what? In the best interest of the children, I think that we should have 50-50, and we should
Mhm.
just, do a joint divorce. Okay,
Mm.
we have irreconcilable differences.
Mm.
I'll put the documentation. You just sign off,
Mm.
and we will just pay maybe $260 to the court, like as
Mm.
administrative fees, and then we go our separate ways. But he refused.
Really?
Yes, he refused to sign the papers. So at that point, I was now like, this is a very, very, very tough moment because I don't have the money to actually, like, to hire a lawyer for divorce in Alberta. For a contentious divorce, you spend nothing less than at least $15,000. At
Mm.
least that's on the low side. to the maximum, as it gets messy, it could get up to $50,000. I was like, where am I going to get this money from? So as much as possible, I was still trying to make it non-contentious. So when he refused, I said, okay, you know what? I went and I filed. And, I made a lot of mistakes because this was something I was not used to. It was an area that was completely gray for me. The courts, I asked for some help. I filled the forms, I submitted, I served him, and I locked out because there's a technicality in Canadian divorce, which is what we call the time frame within which you need to respond. So when you say applying for divorce, the person needs to accept and then serve you a statement of defense. If the person doesn't serve you a statement of defense, you can note them in default. It means that they don't plan to take any action, and the court should just go ahead and make it non-contentious and just file based on what it is that you've claimed. So the good thing is that because I didn't claim for any child support, spousal support, or any of those things, which ideally I should have, but because remember, the whole idea was not to make this messy, was to make it as non-contentious as possible, make sure that we have everything settled, and then just separate these lives as easily as possible. So that other people, so the earlier you do that, the easier you start finding, yourself, the easier you start finding your path for both of us. Because remember, there are children in the middle of these things that need stability, whether they go here or there. They need to be stable. We need to make choices concerning them. So I was like, this thing is not going to end for the next at least 18 years. Or like at that time, it was like maybe 14 years. So I said, I need to navigate this thing as gracefully as possible. But, it is not easy. This is going with a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of, so like, I want to believe that I locked out on this and God just helped me. He saw that I needed to navigate, like for me to navigate this thing the way I wish to and find my peace, just made it happen. So he defaulted. I filed a notice in a notice of default, and I filed all the other materials, and then the divorce was granted. So this was like a light bulb moment for me. I was like, the truth is, and I could see many other families that were struggling, many that we had moved around that time, because relocation just exposes your cracks. Exposes your cracks. So a lot of couples were navigating through this season, and I was like, how can I help people pivot this season? And not only in the sense of actually processing the divorce, but actually as a ministry, like, is there any possibility of reconciliation? Is there any possibility that we can fix this? And then if we cannot, how can we mitigate the damage that it's going to do to the children? How can we put the best interest of the kids before any of the other interests? Because adults make shitty decisions. We don't always thoroughly think about it. Somebody is moved here, somebody's ego is moved here. We suddenly become this. But then, if there are kids in the middle of these things, these are things that they will live with for the rest of your life, for the rest of their lives. So it became my mission to help people, because what it turns out to be is that a lot of family lawyers are burnt out. They don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about you. Like, if you want to fight, that's fine. Just more money in your lawyer's pocket, right? So there was no human face to this thing. All when you say divorce, all you think about is loss, money, loss. So I said, how can I help people transition this thing as best as possible? If there's no possibility of reconciliation, if there's no possibility of, like, if it has to go down to the point where we have become violent, all sorts of things are happening, how can we detangle this family with as much grace as possible, or with minimal damage? So that's how life pushed me into this area. It was not an area I ever thought I would ever be in, but it was where I found myself. And, you know, that's how I got here.